Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today as we take a few minutes and drop in and take a closer look at the Tradogram solution. I think you'll find it to be very, very interesting and informative as we open the hood and take a look at the product today. My name is Scott Gregory. I'll be serving as your host for our time together today, and I really appreciate you being here with us. In just a few minutes, I will be bringing Kyle Strong from Tradogram on the line. He'll be the one that will actually be taking us through the inner workings of Tradogram and talking about how it works, how it integrates with QuickBooks and so forth. So we'll get into that in just a minute. For the question that typically comes up at this point is, are we recording this? Yes, we are. The recorder is rolling now, so everyone will get a link to the playback of it once we finalized and got everything done for it. So if you happen to miss a specific click or what have you today, don't worry about it because you'll definitely have full access to the recording when it's ready to go. So we'll get that emailed out to you. If you have questions along the way today, if you're not familiar with the GoToWebinar tool, off to the side, you should see the little question box over there. So feel free to hammer in your question as you think of it. And Kyle and I will take time today to get those questions answered, or reserve the right to say we don't know, but we will find out and come back to you offline if we have to do that. So just want to get those administrative things out of the way real quickly here. So hopefully your day's off to a great start. Here in Cleveland right now, it's about 45 degrees. We had some hail earlier a few minutes ago, surprisingly enough. So not sure what that entails, but again, hopefully your day is rolling well so far. And so I mentioned we're here to talk about Tradogram. So quick overview, Tradogram is a tailor-made purchasing and procurement cloud-based platform for your business. So let's dig down into that a little bit and see what that means. Oops, went one slide too far. So to set the stage for you a little bit here, let's kind of back up and talk about QuickBooks itself in terms of purchasing and procurement. QuickBooks can sort of, in my mind, handle the purchase order creation. It has a very rudimentary purchase order tool in it, and you can send purchase orders out to different vendors and so forth. If you're doing that, you've seen that behavior. You can also receive items through the purchasing and receiving functionality. And for some businesses, that's all they need. It's got that core functionality in it. But what QuickBooks can't do is a number of things. First of all, QuickBooks is not a fully mobile solution unless you happen to be using QuickBooks Online. That is fully mobile, but the purchasing module of that is even less refined than it is in the desktop. So QuickBooks also can't offer the ability to have, specific vendor catalogs, pricing per vendor per se. You have to do some kind of crazy workarounds and spreadsheets and so forth to handle all that. QuickBooks has no concept of tracking supplier performance, measuring and tracking suppliers. QuickBooks doesn't know a thing about requisitions or approval workflows. If you were doing approval workflows in QuickBooks, you're literally doing things through email and some other sneakernet type approach. There's no automated ways to do it. Yes, QuickBooks has some budgeting tools, but not in relation to the purchasing and procurement side of the house. So it's lacking there, and there's other procurement needs and purchasing needs too that a lot of organizations need that QuickBooks doesn't solve for. So the good news is that Tradogram can handle all these functions QuickBooks can't, and much, much more. Now, I see that I forgot to update my slide because we are actually having Kyle on the line here to show us the way. So Kyle, if you'd be kind enough to give us an introduction of yourself, we'd appreciate it. Let me flip over here and make you the presenter.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, so you are the presenter now. If you'd be kind enough to just click the show my screen. And perfect, we see your screen now, so go ahead and do the introduction if you like.
Yeah, sure thing. So just to make sure we're on the right screen here, are you taking a look at the future spend management here?
We sure are.
All right, perfect. So yeah, unfortunately, Majdi couldn't be here with us today. He actually flew off on a business trip to Dubai to do a little bit of a demonstration of our product there this week. So my name is yeah, it was quite rapid, very little preparation, but I think it should be a good fun time. He's been having a good time over there, spreading the good word about procurement management. But yeah, I'm Kyle. I'm a sales and marketing coordinator here at Tradogram, filling in for Majdi today. And so Tradogram has partnered with QuickBooks to provide their users with a way to set up kind of an automated synchronization between purchasing transactions on Tradogram with their accounting data on QuickBooks. And just before we get into things, this is actually something I threw together in probably 2 minutes before the session today, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to put this into a visual perspective of how Tradogram is going to work. You can see I've got this professional untitled Paint document here. But basically the way this integration is going to work is you've got tons of elaborate accounting data over on QuickBooks, and the advantage you're going to get by using Tradogram is you're going to be able to take a very elaborate purchasing process and tons of purchasing data, do all your complicated processes over here, and then filter all of the relevant information simply through to your accounting data on QuickBooks. So I'll go ahead and get that out of here now. I thought it would be
That's a
kind of
good visual.
interesting.
That helps.
Yeah, that's kind of the value you're going to get. You've got two very complicated kind of standalone processes, and you're creating a very simple bridge that's going to be transferring relevant data between those two platforms.
So tell us
All
a
right.
little bit more about the niche that you're hoping to fill with, especially with the QuickBooks integration.
Yeah, so Tradogram is a cloud-based procurement software. We're based out of Ontario, Canada, and we've been providing a way for companies to kind of manage their full end-to-end procurement process in 60 countries worldwide since our launch 4 years ago. And so with that being said, when it comes to the QuickBooks integration, Tradogram covers the entirety of the purchasing niche that isn't really handled directly by QuickBooks. And so the value, again, is just going to be streamlining the purchasing and accounts payable processes and really automating the connection between those two things.
So you gave us kind of the high level, overview in your Wicked Paint platform there. Can you break down into a little bit more detail for us about what information is actually being transferred across the bridge from Tradogram into QuickBooks?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll go through just a quick verbal, and we'll be going into more details here very shortly. But just on a quick verbal overview, all the purchase orders that you create on Tradogram on the purchasing side of things are going to be transferred over to QuickBooks as purchase orders. And any cost fields that you have on purchase orders are also going to be transferred over as items on those purchase orders. So I'll just give you a quick look here at a purchase order real quick. We got a sample order here. So details like this optionally can be sent over to QuickBooks. Actually, I think a good way to show this off, some of the options would just be if we go under Manage Company here, we can take a look at some of the settings that we have available to us. Here we go. So yeah, you can see we've got different filters here for purchase orders and also, of course, invoices, probably even arguably more important than the purchase orders being sent over. Invoice records are going to be sent over to QuickBooks as bills, which I'm sure anyone who's familiar with using QuickBooks is used to hearing them referenced as bills. And you can also copy your list of vendors from QuickBooks onto Tradogram. And also any estimates that you have on QuickBooks can be transferred over to Tradogram in the form of projects. And actually one more thing I'd like to mention as well is the GL accounts. So you can set up your GL accounts on Tradogram here. So as you can see, we've got a list of just some sample GL accounts. Obviously, if you're actually using QuickBooks, you're going to have a much more elaborate list here. I'm not an accountant myself, so I did my best to kind of get a sample of some GL accounts that might typically be used here. But what this is going to do is for each line item you have on a purchase order, you're going to be able to assign each of those line items to a GL account. And then when you fire those items over to QuickBooks, you're going to have all of your elaborate GL accounting information assigned to each of those line items.
Yeah, I being an accountant myself, you're right. You've got some of the core accounts here, but however many there needs to be, whether there's 10 or 100 different accounts, the user would be able to pick the accounts to code it to.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. As far as the actual connection between Tradogram and QuickBooks, that's happening through the QuickBooks Web Connector. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Now,
Okay.
unfortunately, today this PC that I'm using does not have the QuickBooks software on it. I do have a screenshot here, though, of just the QuickBooks Web Connector. So you can see here, this would be the QuickBooks Web Connector, and all you have to do to set up this integration is there's this Add an Application button down here on the Web Connector. And so all you would need to do is go here to the QuickBooks Desktop Integration. We'll just minimize this here. You download your QWC file, and then if this was the QuickBooks Web Connector itself, all you have to do is drag and drop this file onto Add an Application, and that will initiate the integration.
Yeah, thanks for the visual. That helps a lot. And if our audience today is not familiar with the QuickBooks Web Connector, it may seem kind of scary that you got to have your IT department involved. It's really not. It's a very easy thing to do. And then you may not be able to see it there, but you can set this connector to then sync. I think the default is every 60 minutes, but you can set that to sync, at your own leisure. And then, Kyle, is there actually a manual button inside a Tradogram to push data over, or is it all driven through the Web Connector?
Yeah, so you can kind of choose whether or not you'd like to do a manual push or whether you'd like it to just be set up to automatically run every hour to pull data from the system.
Okay, great. Yeah, so again, don't worry that you have to get IT people involved to make that connection, because you don't. It's very easy to do.
It's quite simple. I just wanted to mention really quickly too that we do have a help document as well to kind of help people walk through that process, because it seems intimidating at first, but it's actually incredibly simple. It's very, very straightforward.
Awesome. So let's talk about some of the features that you have to get into structuring workflows. I know that's a very, very common topic, or popular topic, I should say, for folks. So if you could share with us some of those insights.
Yeah, definitely. So just to start things off, it's already been mentioned a few times, but we are a fully mobile solution. So we are cloud-based, and our application it does host a adaptive display, which means that it can be used on any device and it'll look good. It's also you can also configure it to automatically send notifications and alerts through email to designated individuals, which is kind of nice for structuring people's workflows when they're kind of off the system and they just want to get information directly into their inbox. And the dashboard is also configurable per user. So one comment that we actually get quite frequently when people come into the system at first is they take a look at this dashboard over on the left and they say, wow, this is too feature rich for me. There's too many features here. We're looking for something a little bit more simple. And one of the solutions for that is you can actually customize this dashboard on the left for each user in your company so that they only see what they need to see. So just as a quick example here, I'm going to go ahead and turn off suppliers. I'm also going to turn off categories. We're going to get rid of some of these key features that are here just as a demonstration. So we're going to turn off items, and we're also going to turn off the categories for items. So you're going to notice right now that we have suppliers, items, and categories on our left dashboard, but as soon as we save these permissions, pop, those are gone. So you're going to be able to create a really lean workflow for each user in your company by configuring these permissions. I'm just going to go ahead and turn those back on because those are actually some of the key topics that we want to talk about today, but just as an example, I wanted to show you how you can kind of enable and disable those on the fly. And there we go, they're back once again. So yeah, on Tradogram, you can configure and structure your company on the company, branch, and department level. We can see here we're in one of our branches, and within each branch in your company, you can also have separate sub-departments. So for this example, we've got something like a production company. You can have audio department, video department, but of course this is very flexible. Whatever industry you happen to be in, you can structure your departments however you need them to be set up. And then likewise, this is going to tie in with your accounting information when you're creating purchase orders on the system. And one other thing I'd like to mention as well, which we're going to get into shortly, is that we do have approval workflows here. And each branch within your company can have its own unique approval workflows. So if you have different branches that operate in different ways and have different approvers and different ways of operating, you're going to be able to have separate branches that handle those processes.
Yeah, Kyle and I were talking before we jumped on the line today that they're implementing a 50 user setup right now, which obviously has a number of different workflow considerations. So it can go from small to large for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes, different branches have different requirements. Not every branch within a company is going to operate the same way. If you need to have custom PO numbers for each branch, if you need to have different default terms stamped on each of your purchase orders, that's something that's definitely possible. But to dig in a little bit deeper now to the approvals and the workflow, I think this is probably one of the core aspects of our system that a lot of people get value from. And this is the approval workflow. Just going to take a quick drink of water here. Here we go. So yeah, approvals. When you're structuring your purchasing workflow, we can see here that we've got different types of approvals. You can have approvals for purchase orders, you can have them for requisitions, and you can have them for invoices. Just to take a quick overview at what adding a new approval might look like here, we can click on the Add New Approval Rule button. And again, this might look really complicated at first, right? You've got this huge form with all kinds of different options. But just like our panel on the left, where all of these features are kind of optional, most of these are all optional things that you can add to improve the workflow of the approval rule that you add. So the only thing you need to really pick here is, first of all, you want to pick what the approval is going to be for, right? So if you're going to be making requisition approvals, purchase orders, or invoices, you got to pick that, of course. And then, of course, we've got hierarchy levels here. I'll talk about that in just a second. Other than that, you've got your approver, so you can pick someone that you want to have as the main approver. And we also have alternate approver in case the main approver is not available to give their approval. So this is an optional thing. And then down here, we've got all of our criteria. So this is where the complete flexibility comes in. This is all optional. But you can set up approvals for different supplier or item categories. So if you want to have something, approvals for like metal parts, or just for audio equipment, or just for video equipment, you can do that. We've also got our different departments, which we went over just recently here. So if you want to have specific department approval rules, you can set that up as well. We also have project management on our system. So if you want to have unique rules for a certain project that you're hosting, you can set that up as well. And then right here, we've got approval thresholds. So if you only want this rule to apply to everything that is $10,000 and up, you can specify that. Or likewise, if you want this rule to apply to everything on the system, you can just go ahead and set that amount to 1 so that it will apply to everything. So a very elaborate system here. We're going to be able to see this in action because we will go through a sample workflow here. We can see we've got kind of a selection here of different approvals, and we'll see all these in action when we go through a sample workflow here. So yeah, each of these rules is going to stack as well. So if you create one rule, it's going to stack with all the other rules that you've already created. So there's quite a bit of flexibility here, and it's definitely quite versatile. It's probably one of the most versatile features on the system.
And I thought I saw in there that you can exempt users from rules if you have to carve out certain folks, i.e. the president or the owner, from to bend the rules. I thought I saw that in there too. You could do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that is true. So I've actually got, just for my sample data here, I've got one guy, Douglas, is exempt from all approvals. So when I'm going through here and doing test transactions, I can go through with Douglas and he gets to just bypass all of these rules that we've set up. So we're going to notice when we go through today the sample transaction, Logan here is going to run into a number of different approval walls that we're going to have to deal with. But as for Douglas, since he's kind of the president, he's able to skip over all of those things, and you can configure that for any user in the company.
Nice, nice. Anything else on the approval that you want to show us, or did you want to kind of transition over to the supplier management conversation now?
Yeah, we can kind of leave off on approvals for now. We'll see these in action just a bit later. We can move over to supplier management, definitely. So let's just go over here to suppliers real quick. So this is going to be touching on kind of vendor and item catalog management. And one of the great things about Tradogram is that you can categorize all of your different suppliers and your items. Let's give you a quick look at the items here as well. These two modules are very similar, and they both tie in with categories. And the categories are going to let you filter through your items and your suppliers to find exactly what you need very, very quickly. So for example, if we go to our suppliers here, we've got a number of predefined categories that I've set up here on the system. So we can see we've got a list of 52 suppliers, right? That's quite a few. If we want to filter this out and only take a look at the ones who focus on our studio production supplies, we can do that, and we can see here that we've got a list of our suppliers that will be able to send us some studio production equipment. One other thing I'd like to point out as well is that you can add subcategories to your suppliers. So let's say, for example, we go to food and catering here. We've got a list of restaurants here for like burger places, pizza, taco stands, all kinds of good stuff, right? If we go to our supplier subcategories and we want to just take a look at the ones that have sandwiches, for example, we can do that. And all of a sudden we've got just our sandwich suppliers here. And also if we want to just look at ones who deal with snacks, we can go here and we've got all our snack companies. So we'll just go ahead and reset these here. And likewise, the same thing can be said for items. So we've got lots of item categories here. If we want to go through here, we can filter by supplier. So if we want to see what the AV shop is offering in their item catalog, we can do that. So we've got just items from the AV shop here as well. And similarly, if we want to go through and take a look at specific item categories, we can do that as well. And so just for an example here, I know that procurement is very flexible and deals with all kinds of different items, right? So this is an example here. I thought we could just use chips as a quick way to kind of be a universal example. So here we've got a list of all of our chips on the system that we have. We've got a number of different flavors. One way you could filter this even further is by having a specific one for just mild flavors. So if we do that, we'll notice a lot of the spicy flavors are now gone. And likewise, if we wanted to do just spicy chips, then we can do that. And we've got all of our, Doritos Blaze, the jalapeno, all the spicy flavors, right? So it's very flexible and gives you a lot of good ways to be able to navigate through the system. You can also search by name as well. So, if you type in Blaze here, it's going to come up with your Blaze flavored chips. So yeah, that kind of covers the vendor items and catalog stuff.
In addition to bringing the items in from QuickBooks, are you also able to do like a specific supplier catalog through like an Excel or CSV import also?
Yeah,
As an
definitely.
alternate route?
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't mention here is that let me just minimize this window here to show you on the desktop. So one of the things you can do on QuickBooks is import your list of QuickBooks suppliers directly into Tradogram. I was actually speaking with someone just the other day who was interested in doing this because they've got a large list of suppliers. And when they first come onto the system, they're not going to have any suppliers here. So a quick way you can import your list of suppliers initially is by doing that through our integration page. And that's going to fill out your list of suppliers. And if you come down here to this export to CSV button, that's going to export your entire list of suppliers into a spreadsheet file. So we can click on this. Now we can see there's tons of information here, probably more information than we'd like to see. But one other cool thing you can do with this as well is we were just talking a little bit extensively about categories. We've got a column here explicitly for supplier categories. So if you want to go through and quickly categorize your huge list of vendors that you've got here, you can quickly copy and paste all that information in here. And then once you're done doing that, all you need to do is go up here and you would just go import from Excel and you can make updates to your supplier database that way.
Nice. And the same would apply there. So if a supplier has, comes out with an annual price increase, or they raise their prices 5%, you could kind of do the same export import thing, I would assume, too, to get your unit costs up to date.
Yeah, it's a very quick way to be able to just quickly you export your suppliers list, you make your changes, and then you just import it right back into the system to make your updates.
Nice. QuickBooks is on the outside now being very jealous and envious of all these things that it can't do, looking over. Very, very jealous.
Yeah, well, there's no need for it to be jealous, right? Because it's going to be we're going to be partnering up, so
That's
they're going to
right.
work in harmony together to get the best workflow.
Do you want to kind of move on to the project, since we do have to talk about money at some point in time, the projects and the budgets?
Yeah, for sure. I'll just very quickly before we get into that, I just wanted to show off the supplier profile because again, speaking about money, you've always got your financial information, right? So here in your supplier profile, if you click on financials, actually each profile is going to have default currency. So if you are doing transactions with different types of currency, our system actually takes care of that for you automatically and does the conversion. So that's really convenient for people that are making business deals in China or across seas, or even just neighboring places. If you're doing a cross border from the United States to Canada, you can take care of that really easily. You've got your default payment terms, tax calculations, all of this good stuff is going to be taken care of automatically. And also we do have, to say briefly, we do have a supplier evaluation module, so you can kind of keep track of how well your suppliers are performing on a regular basis. But yeah, we can definitely move on to the budgets, which also deals with money, budgets and projects. So if we go to our budgets module over here on the left, we're going to see that we've got a few different budgets here for 2018. So you can create custom budgets. In this example, we've got a full year budget, a second half, and a Q4 budget. If we click on the full year here, we're going to be taking a look at our full company budget for 2018 for Steel Bear Productions, which is our example company we have here. So if we click on edit down here, we're going to see a breakdown of all of our branches budgets. And we've also got a note here so we can see that these other branches that don't have a lot of funds allocated to them, these have been newly added this year, and they will be allocated with more funds and staffing in 2019. So we can see that most of our budget is allocated to this Canada branch in this particular example. If we cancel out of that and we click on one of our branches, we're going to see a breakdown for that branch's budget. So we can see here that we've got all kinds of those different departments that we looked at earlier. We've got our warehouses, our audio department, our video department, all of this good stuff. If we click edit again, we can see a breakdown of how we want to allocate our funds for this budget. So we can see here that we've got all kinds of different values established there. And the great thing about this budgets module is every time we make a purchase order, these amounts are going to be updated automatically in these bars. So if we scroll down here, we can see a few of these don't have a lot of orders made for them. But for example, if we make an order from the main office, it's going to update this bar to show how much we've ordered for this department and also how much we've been invoiced for. So that's kind of a quick look at the budgets module. Another thing that kind of ties into budgets is our projects tab here. So again, you have your branch and department and company level budgets. A lot of companies, though, deal with new projects on a regular basis, right? Like if you have a construction company that's working on different sites on a regular basis, they quite frequently have individual project budgets that they need to manage. So if we click on, we've got an October 2018 project here, we can see that we have an individual budget amount allocated to this project. One of the features we offer for project management as well is being able to break it down into individual project lines. So these are kind of like sub-projects or categories for your project. So in this case, we can see that we've got a budget for our audio, for our catering, filming, social media, and all that good stuff. And also down here, we can see a list of our different purchase orders that have been created that are allocated with this project. So for example, if we see that maybe there's like a DSLR camera that got ordered for a filming project, if we click on this, it's going to bring us right to the purchase order, and we can take a look at all the details on this purchase order.
And this is all optional, right? I mean, the budgets and or projects are not mandatory. They're just modules that can be turned on or off.
Yeah, that is correct. And
Okay.
again, it's important to keep reiterating that because I mean, as great as these features are, I know a lot of people are not necessarily looking for that as a solution. And so these are all optional things. You don't need to use budgets or projects, but for the people that do want to use them, it's a great way to structure and keep track of your process.
So speaking of the process, is now a good time to kind of get down into the ground level to show how the process actually works from the requisition through the invoice matching, or were there some other things that you wanted to cover in kind of the setup and overview at this point?
No, I think this might be let's take a quick look at the time here, see how we're doing. Yeah, I think it would be a good time to just kind of move into the process to
Okay.
kind of show off how that would work. So we're going to kind of do this from the ground level, like you mentioned. We can start this from the requisition process and then kind of move through to purchase order creation, invoicing, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Let's take a look.
All right. So I've actually got another window open here on the side, which I will just slide over here. So as we mentioned, you can configure each user in the company to have different permissions and roles. And so we've got Bobby here, who is a requisitioner in the company, and you can see that he doesn't really have access to all the budgets and projects and all the overview. So this is a guy who's just going to be submitting requisitions to the system. So if we go here to transactions, we can start off this process by going to requisitions, and we're going to have Bobby make a new requisition here. So we're going to go to a standard requisition. We're going to need to give this requisition a title. How about we do QB webinar 2018, just for clarity's sake, so we can track this as we move forward. Obviously, you can put in whatever title you'd like for that. We can upload additional requisition files to this file as well. I'd just like to make that clear. So if we have something like a material submission form, we can attach this. So I just uploaded a JPEG image. We can click on this here and then click view, and we can see that we've got this attached. You can also upload things like PDFs or GIF files, whatever is useful. There's no real restriction on what kind of files you want to attach. And you can also do this, you can attach things to various things like purchase orders as well on the system. But as we mentioned as well, we've got departments here, so we're going to need to pick a department. So we'll go ahead and just make this for the main office. If we'd like to, we can associate a project. So we'll have this this requisition show up in the October 2018 project that we just took a look at. And then we can also pick an associated project line. Let's go ahead and just go with snacks for now. I think snacks are a good universal thing because procurement is just so complicated, and so many different things are getting ordered on a regular basis, right? So let's go to, we can, if we want to, attach fillable forms. This is something I wasn't able to cover too much in detail, but if we want to, there are fillable forms you can attach. And these are things that you can pre-configure yourself on the system to pretty much meet any needs you want. So if you wanted to have a snack form, for example, you could ask the person, you could ask Bobby, okay, why are you ordering these snacks? How many snacks do we need to order? How many months has it been since you last ordered snacks? We can have like numerical fields here. Obviously, these can be configured to match whatever your industry orders in particular. Very flexible, and it's a good way to communicate needs internally if that's something that's useful to you. But what we're going to do now is go into our database, and we've got all kinds of items here, but we probably just want to look for some snacks really quickly here, so we can type in chips. Then we've got all kinds of different flavors here. Scott, I don't know if you have any particular favorite flavored chips that you'd like to order here.
I'll let you choose. I'm a Doritos fan across the board, so whatever you like.
Oh yeah, all right then.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll get some Cool Ranch. Maybe we can go with some spicy ones in there. So we'll add those to our requisition. Maybe we'll want to order some multiple bags of these. And so as we can see, since those items are on our database, they've already got some information associated with them. So each item can have its own description. So we've got Pow, a bag of nacho cheese. Here from Cool Ranch, we got Crunch, a bag of Cool Ranch. And then Yowza, we got a bag of spicy. All right. So you can have all your descriptions set up here automatically. Custom fields, you can have custom fields associated with each item. As you can see, we've got serving sizes, all the details about sodium, cholesterol, all the things that are going to make you feel guilty about eating these things.
Yeah, we
We
don't need to
have,
see that.
yeah, no. You don't want to see them, but they're included in the item profile if that's something you need. And also, we've got specification files as well. So we can see here, we've got some files automatically associated with these items uploaded in our database. So we can see we got Mike Myers here, he's chowing down. So we've got that automatically associated with that item. We've got our nutrition information here for these Doritos, and then we've also got our recipe as well, which is a PDF file. And all of these are going to be included automatically on these items. And of course, we've got our estimated unit price as well, already good to go. So that's kind of just a complete overview of how quick this can be and how much information you can convey through a requisition in just a few clicks. But now that that's all good to go, we're going to go ahead and send off this requisition. There it goes, and we've hit our first approval wall. So this requisition is now pending approval, and we're going to need to log into Dave Elliott's his account in order to give this approval here. So we're going to get Bobby out of here, and we're going to log out on here, and we're going to go into Dave's account to give the recommended approval, or the required approval, I should say, not recommended. It is mandatory. And so we can see here on Dave's account, we've got alerts. So Dave is going to be notified through the system that our requisition for the QuickBooks webinar is now pending his approval. So he can click on that and then give his approval. So he's going to go through here. He's going to see all these specification files. He's going to see, you know, Mike Myers is eating his chips there. All this information is going to be shared with him. He's going to close out of that and give his approval once he sees that this is good to go. All right, so he's now given his approval. And just over here, I've got another window. I know this is a lot of windows, but this is just an email I have set up for handling all the email notifications that are being sent out from the system. So we can see that Dave also received a notification that he needed to give approval, and that once he did give that approval, it's going to notify the relevant users that he's given that approval and that the next step of action needs to be taken. All right, so we're going to log on out from Dave's account and go back over to Logan, who is going to be creating our purchase order today. Hello, Logan, welcome back. So Logan here is going to have a notification as well. It's going to say that a user in the department created a requisition, and that's going to bring him to the requisition we just created here. And so from this tab, we can view affected budgets if we want to. So if we click that, we can take a look for the main office. Again, this requisition was created for the main office. We can see how this is going to impact our budgets and make sure that it aligns with everything that we expect to be spending. But just to keep this moving here, let's go to create the purchase order now. So as you can see, we can automatically flip the requisition we just created into a purchase order. So let's go ahead and do that. And so now we're going to have our purchase order here. It's going to automatically have the same title, but we can change that title if we wanted to make it different to send to our suppliers, for example. So maybe we can just add PO to the front. In this certain circumstance, we could also add a due date if we want to. Maybe we want these by next week. One thing I'd like to go over in particular for people that do use requisitions is that you can use this requisitions tab to keep track of multiple requisitions that are open in your company. So for example, we can see we have a number of open requisitions here for other Doritos. But then we've also got a bunch of different production equipment down here. These are grayed out because these items are not associated with a supplier that can provide these items to us, since we're already ordering a bunch of chips. So obviously we're not going to be sending a requisition for snack food to an AV specialist company. So these are all going to be grayed out. But these quantities here are going to update whenever we place an order. So I want you to just keep in mind as we're moving forward here that this number is at quantity 80. And we're going to go ahead and check this off. And we're going to add some extra Doritos onto our purchase order here, just like that. And instead of ordering all 80 of those bags at once, we're going to go ahead and switch that to 10. So we're going to come back afterwards and take a look at this, and that number should be updated to 70 remaining outstanding bags. But for the time being, let's hit done editing. And once everything is good to go here, we can go to next. And then we get to pick our supplier. So in this case, we've got two possible suppliers we can place this order to. I'd like you to pay particular attention to the fact that this is in Canadian currency right now, so it's 117 Canadian dollars. If we click on this supplier, we can apply the default payment terms, tax rate, and default currency automatically. So all of a sudden, we're going to see that we've got a new US dollar total amount, and that the sales tax of 15% has automatically been calculated for, and we've also got use tax applied to this particular order. We can also specify anything like invoices, packing lists, shipping bills if we're sending this out externally to a different supplier. Let's go ahead here and just create the purchase order with all of these details now intact. And we're going to run into another approval wall. And here we can see an example of approval hierarchies in action. So we can see here that either Renee or Andrew is going to have to give a first tier of approval. And once they give their approval, then Andrea and Heather are going to be notified that it's their turn to give approval. So if you need to have approval hierarchies, that's something that we can do. So we're going to have to log out, say goodbye to Logan for a second here. And we're going to log into Renee's account. So we can see we've got a lot of user accounts we can log into here potentially. So yeah, Renee is going to be able to see the purchase order, give it a quick review, see the payment terms. We've got our sales tax and everything already good to go. We can also review any requisition items that are being affected here, and we've got an activity log. So Renee is going to go ahead and give her approval. There we go. And then once that's done, Andrea and Heather are both going to be notified that either one of them is going to now be required to give their approval. So we're going to log into one of their accounts. Let's just log into Heather's account here. And now Heather is going to have to give her approval before this purchase order can be processed. So there we go. Approval has been granted. We'll jump back on.
Everybody's happy so far. That's a good thing. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we'll go here on Logan's account. And so now we have a few options available to us. And this really boils down to how your process works internally. Some companies like to just keep purchase orders on hand internally without sending them to suppliers, just as kind of an internal record of what they purchased. And that's very possible on this system. If we want to, we don't have to send this to the supplier. We can just keep this on Tradogram. We can just close the PO, or we could file an invoice to associate with it and then close it. If we want to, though, we can send this to the supplier for confirmation first. Again, we can check our affected budgets here before we do this to make sure that it's something we want to lock into. But we can check off supplier confirmation, send this to the supplier. So we're going to do that. And that's going to land now in our inbox. So what I'm going to do here is I actually need to log out of our account just to simulate a buyer, or a supplier rather, sorry, receiving this. So we've got our inbox here. We're going to receive a new purchase order from Logan. And so this is what Wally Wonka is going to receive at the Good Snack Company. This is going to land in his inbox. He's going to be able to click to view the purchase order. And we can see here that we can either accept or decline the purchase order. We've also got PDF versions available here if this needs to be shared internally. So we can scroll down and see. We've also got a section for our specification summaries. We've got our descriptions with the POW, crunch, yowza, all the guilty facts that you need to know about these things before you eat them. And then we can close out of that. If the supplier does end up declining the purchase order, it is possible to leave a note so the supplier can communicate why they're declining it. As we can see, all the custom fields and our specification files are staying with everything that we've sent to the supplier, so these are going to be transferred over seamlessly. In this instance, if we want to, we can accept the purchase order to give our confirmation. And so now back in our company, just going to close out of this, move this over here, log back in. We're going to get an error message here because the system thinks that we're trying to log in as a supplier. But we are in fact back on Logan's account here. So we're going to see that we get a notification that our purchase order has just been accepted by the supplier. And so now we can go ahead and take other actions. Now that this is being confirmed, if we want to, we can add an invoice, which is probably one of the most important things here. So let's go ahead and do that, I guess. We'll go here and add a new invoice. So obviously we're going to have an invoice number. Just going to do a little bit of random number generation there. For this particular example, we've got the invoice date. I believe this was a net 30 invoice, so we can go ahead and put the due date as 1 month from now. And then down here as well, we've got the invoice amount. This ties in with deliveries. As a matter of fact, it might make sense to look at the deliveries module first before we do this, now that I'm thinking about it. So let's say we want to add a delivery to that PO that we just made. We want to track how many of these goods we received. So let's just go in here and populate this. We'll say FedEx is delivering these goods. We'll say these were delivered today, and somehow miraculously they were express shipped and they ended up being delivered to us on that same day. We're going to be able to log in here how many of each of these bags were delivered to us. If for some reason something was damaged, we can make a note of that here and make a note that maybe one of the bags popped in delivery. If we want to manage inventory distribution, that's an option as well. But in this case, we're not going to be looking too much at that particular feature. Let's just go ahead and add the delivery now with this one discrepancy. Obviously, we ordered 5 bags of Doritos, but we only got 4. So we're going to add the delivery. So this is now in delivery. We're going to go up here to our purchase orders once again. We can see that it's now marked as in delivery. One interesting thing too I'd like to note, just really quick, if we bring Bobby back over here, Bobby doesn't have access to manage any of these things, but he will receive updates. So he can see from the time that he placed his requisition here, he can track the purchase order status to see where his requisition is and how long it's going to take for him to receive the things that he requisitioned. So that's kind of a useful feature for anyone who manages requisitions.
Yeah, the visibility in here is great.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about making sure that everyone knows kind of what is going on with these orders, and everyone is automatically notified whenever they need to take an action in the process. So just going to be wrapping up the process here. We're going to go to add new invoice. And the great thing about this module is that once we book in a delivery, we can automatically associate that delivery with the invoice to align what we're actually paying for, because obviously we're not going to be paying the supplier for a bursted bag of chips, right? So if we go here to delivery 1 and check this off, we can populate the invoice with the received quantities. And as we can see here, we're only going to be paying for 4 bags of chips because one of them was popped. So we go down here. If we need to add any cost fields or edit or remove cost fields, we can do that. But for now, we're just going to enter the invoice. And once again, we're going to run into an approval wall because we have the system set up that way. So we're going to go log out here. And we're going to go to, I believe it was Robbie, who was one of the people who needed to approve the invoice record. So Robbie's going to come in here. He's going to see, okay, we've got an invoice record. All right, let's see, it's in delivery. This is good. Okay, these seem to align. Robbie's going to go down here. He's going to take a look at the purchase order items, and he's going to see, oh, okay, well, wait a second. We ordered 5 bags of Doritos. Well, why are only 4 of these being invoiced here? There seems to be a bit of a discrepancy here. So he's going to scroll down. He's going to take a look at all of these different things. He's going to be able to click on an associated delivery here, and he's going to get a breakdown of exactly each line item that was ordered. And so you can see there's a note here that he's going to be able to open up and see, oh, one of the bags popped. Okay, so that's why we're only paying for 4. Okay, this looks good. He's going to be able to go and approve this. And so now this invoice record is going to be approved for payment. So we'll log out once more and say hello to Logan, who is of course managing this process for the most part. And Logan's going to be able to go in here and mark this as paid. One thing to note as well, if this is applicable, you can add credit notes. So if you wanted to add a credit note for that one bag of pot Doritos and the good snack company lives up to their name and they are a good supplier and want to give you a credit note for that, you can also add that as well and specify how much you're going to get refunded. But for now, we're going to go ahead and mark this as paid, and that's going to wrap up our approval process and our kind of purchase to pay process as a whole. So what are we left with now? We're left with a purchase order that has been fully received. We're going to close this. And now to tie it all back, I know that was an elaborate process, but to tie it all back, the end result of that process is going to be, we're going to have a purchase order here that is able to be processed by QuickBooks. This purchase order is going to get pushed over to QuickBooks automatically. And all of these details down here for each of your line items are also going to be included, including the sales tax and your grand total. And you're also going to be able to take this invoice document that we just created and push all of these details over to QuickBooks as well.
Yeah, that's where the Web Connect, they would be queued up for the Web Connector to sweep them over, every 60 minutes or however often that thing is sweeping data between the two systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then just to show this off really quickly, because I know we mentioned we wanted to see this, is down here we're going to see that we have our order here for the project that we just created. And also, if we can just take a quick look, if we go to create a new purchase order for the, just go here to requisitions, take a look at that outstanding Dorito amount. So we had a requisition for 100 bags of nacho cheese Doritos. I don't know why you would ever need that many bags, but we can see that that number changed from 80 to 70. So if you have a lot of open requisitions, it's going to automatically keep track of those amounts for you. And that way, even if you have a whole bunch of different items that need to be ordered from different suppliers, you're going to be able to keep track of exactly how much of each item that you need. So yeah, that's the main, the core of the purchase to pay process there. That's handled by Tradogram on our side.
Yeah, and the good news is obviously, this is being recorded. So if our audience didn't happen to capture, one particular click as you were working through there, the recording will have it. And the workflow that you obviously set up there was rather complicated with lots of approvals, but just to keep in mind that it doesn't have to be that way. So from
Yeah, definitely.
very easy
Actually,
to very complex.
yeah, just to give a really quick example, what we just went through is probably the most complicated, most elaborate workflow you could possibly have. We mentioned earlier that I have an account here that can bypass all of those approval rules. Let me just show you how quickly you can make a purchase order here as someone who doesn't need to go through that process. We're just going to go into purchase orders here. We're going to go to create purchase order. It's going to say QB webinar 002. We've got our database items. Let's say I want to buy a new camera. So we're just going to say I want to buy a camera. Got the DSLR camera. Got to select a department, of course. So we're going to put this in the video department. We'll add this. We've got our description here. We've got custom fields so we can see the max FPS and resolution for this camera. So we're just going to click done editing. We're going to click next. We're going to go through here, pick our supplier. So supplier is picked. We're going to create the purchase order and bang, we've already got a purchase order good to go. If we want to, we can associate an invoice, or if we just want this to be an internal record, we can close this purchase order. With this closed purchase order, this is now just going to get pushed over to QuickBooks automatically, and that's all there is to it if you want your process to be that simple. So.
And I saw in there too, there's a button where you can clone. So if you've got recurring or repetitive POs, you can easily just literally copy and paste, right?
Yeah, definitely. So you can just take, obviously we've only got one line item here, but if you had a list of 100 line items, you can very easily just clone that purchase order to get rid of the tedium and just create a duplicate purchase order to send off.
Nice. Yeah, so that was a wonderful overview of the core, from top to bottom, working from the high level down to the ground level as far as how Tradogram works. Are there other things that you think our audience might want to know about Tradogram as we kind of bring the train back into the station? Because you've been talking about chips. I'm guessing most people are hungry. They want to get to lunch here.
Yeah, it is about that time too. We're coming up on,
Yes,
well, at least for our time zone, it's coming up on
right.
lunch. Yeah, I guess just for brief points we can talk about, obviously pricing is a thing that exists. We're very affordable. Our pricing scheme is $15 per user per month or $10 per user per month on an annual plan. And we also offer enterprise discounts that can drive that price even lower. So one of the things that we find people enjoy doing is just signing up with a couple of people on the free account to start to kind of get a feel for the platform. Actually, that's something I should mention as well. You can create a completely free account on Tradogram. There's no time limit. I know that kind of the norm for software programs these days is to sign up for a free trial. You get it for 7 days, and then they kick you out and they start sending you marketing emails. We do things a little bit differently here. Once you create a free account, it's yours forever, no time limit, so you can test things out at your own pace. And then if you want to test out the premium account, a lot of people like to just go in and make like a $45 investment upfront just to get like 3 users on the system and test out the features and get a feel for their workflows. And then from there, it's an extremely affordable system, which is of course one of the main considerations. A couple other features I'd like to mention as well that we didn't get a chance to cover today. We do have modules for strategic sourcing and negotiations with multiple suppliers. So if you want to handle a bidding process or RFQs, request for quotation, we do have a module for that as well. And we also do have a contract management module for long-term purchasing arrangements. And we don't charge extra for those. So everything that you get for that $10 per user per month price, everything is included. So we don't charge extra for any of the extra modules.
Nice. Very nice. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that it's super easy to come in and test things by themselves. We try to keep things really transparent. There's no like hidden implementation fees. Also, the QuickBooks integration is provided completely free of charge. So if you're paying for your Tradogram account, $10 per user per month, you're also going to get access to that QuickBooks integration for free.
And speaking of that, just as a quick refresher, right now you're integrating with QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Enterprise. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And we also have some integrations with other platforms as well, such as Xero, if that's something you're using. But of course, we're focusing here today on the QuickBooks integration. And if you don't see this button here under your Manage Company tab up here at the top right, just give us a quick message. On most accounts, most admin accounts, if we go, it's going to log out here real quick and go into a user that has it available. You're going to have this little chat bubble down here at the bottom right. It's going to say, hey, Douglas, what's going on? Start a new conversation, and you can send our team, hey, it's even got my name right there. So you can send me a direct message, and I'll respond to you right away, and we can get the integration activated on your account that way. And this is available to all admins, so if you ever run into any difficulties, we have free live support as well to help you with any of the issues you run into.
Yeah, I know they've been very responsive as I've been working through my trial for the couple questions I've had. So great work there.
Mhm.
A couple other questions have popped in if you want to take those now.
Oh, yeah, most certainly. I mean, there's always a lot of questions when it comes to implementation. I know we spend a lot of time kind of on me just going through the process, but really the questions from the users are the most important things. So I'm really glad we actually got a few of those here today.
Yeah, so one of them is, I think you covered it, but the question is, does creating a purchase order, then closing it, transfer the info to QuickBooks to create an invoice? I think if I remember correctly, it does transfer it, but it's actually creating an accounts payable bill in QuickBooks, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's actually kind of flexible the way you want to set it up. If we just go here to our QuickBooks integration dashboard here, we've got a number of settings. So if you want to, if you want your closed purchase orders to push over automatically, you can do that. If you just want invoices though, you could uncheck this and your purchase orders wouldn't be pushed. And you can also mark these statuses that you'd like to be pushed over. So if you want your in delivery purchase orders to be pushed, you can do that as well. Likewise, with our invoice filters down here, we can select if we want just the closed and paid invoices to get pushed, or if we want the other statuses to be pushed as well.
Perfect. Yeah, a lot of granularity there as far as how that works. So hopefully that answers that question then for our audience today. Another one has come in when you were doing the receiving. If you had like a receiving user, would they be able to barcode wand those in to update the quantity received?
Yeah, at this point in time, no. Although I can tell you that's something that is on the horizon, I believe, when it comes to especially like warehouse management, right? When you're getting items coming in, being able to scan the barcodes is something we've actually had requested a lot. It's not something we offer right now, but you can leave notes on the delivery. I know that probably won't meet the workflow need directly for those barcodes. I know that's a very specific thing that a lot of people ask for. So unfortunately, no, for that receiving, we don't have the barcode functionality just yet. But feel free to keep us on your radar for the future. We have been looking into potentially doing some integration work with inventory management companies that kind of focus on that to integrate with our deliveries module.
And that's the beauty of having this cloud-based that whenever you have the new features plugged in, you just push them out. It's not like the old traditional desktop where you've got to wait for the annual release of it with all the new goodies in there. I mean, whenever those things happen, they happen. You push them out.
Yeah, yeah, that is correct. Like whenever we make, we do usually monthly or bi-monthly or a twice a month updates to our platform. And so whenever a new update comes out, again, it's completely free of charge, and then you just get that functionality built right into your account. So do feel free to contact us if that is something you're interested in, because we're always looking for new ways to expand the functionality of the system.
And it looks like we have one final question. As far as, could you just do a quick overview of the onboarding process? You know, if somebody signs up for their free trial and they like what they see, just typically how somebody gets up and running from there in a traditional environment, not necessarily a 50 user complex environment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So of course you got your account and billing page here. So when you first sign up, you're going to have kind of an empty company. It's going to be just you in there. If you're interested in adding additional users, that's when you're going to want to upgrade to the premium account. A lot of people enjoy just buying in for 1 month. I know there's that discount for the annual, but for testing purposes, it makes sense to just try out the platform for 1 month. So a lot of people will go in here, they'll pay for 2 or 3 users to get that functionality. You're going to click on your users tab here. Actually, let's go to our individual branch. I actually have a user set up for this workflow. So all you're going to do once you pay for additional user seats on the system is you're going to go up here to add new user. You type in their name, so you type in John. You put in his email. You can also give him a group. A little bit of insider information. I would recommend just going with general to start with, because general is going to automatically configure their permissions to be kind of just a blank slate where they don't have access to too much, and you'll be able to go in and configure those permissions afterwards. But to go back to the users tab here, this is an example of a user that you might have added. They'll have a kind of a pending status symbol here with the yellow dot. And all you're going to have to do is then send the activation email I'll give a quick demonstration of what that would look like. So we can see here we've got our nifty inbox again, receiving all of these different notifications. If we go here and just click the send invitation email, it's going to send an invitation, and it's going to say a Tradogram account has been created to you for William Hartnell. So he's going to be able to click, he's going to be able to click on this and then just follow the steps on here. So he's going to have like a temporary password. and he's going to be able to activate his account and get all set up that way. So make sure you don't make the mistake of having people create their own accounts on the system. We've had a few people do that. You're going to want to use this invite system to onboard your team.
Looks easy enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we've worked our way through the question panel at this point. Obviously, for our audience today, if you have any specifics, I will be sending both Kyle and my contact information out with the link to the recording of today, so feel free to reach out to us and we'll do our best to get you answers to whatever we didn't cover today, not a problem. But so I think that kind of brings us to our conclusion. Kyle, thanks so much for sitting in today and showing everybody around the Tradogram platform. I'm excited about what I see because this brings a whole new realm of things to the QuickBooks community that haven't been out there. So look forward to working with you guys. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott. It's been a pleasure. And of course, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to contact us. We're always open and willing to help discuss your specific needs about the platform.
Excellent. So we'll call it a wrap for now. Everybody can go grab their Doritos if it's lunchtime for you, and everybody make it a great day. And we will hopefully see you on our next webinar. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Bye bye.